Thank you so much for talking with me today. Just so you know what we're doing here, I'm in a critical literacy class, and we're talking about why accurate information is important, especially during an election cycle. So, to get started, what is your name and your profession?
Lori Farrington. I am a teacher,
Awesome. And what is your political affiliation?
Democrat.
So, what would you say is one of your favorite news sources, and why do you use them?
Presently, I would say my favorite news source would be, for local news, would be just regular cable television programming. And then for national news is probably CNN.
Okay. So, whenever you look at these, do you fact check your sources? And if you do, what methods do you use? And if not, why do you feel they're kind of the ultimate authority?
I fact check both both sources if I care enough to look it up. Because typically I feel like I have enough common sense to know whether something seems to be factual or reliable. And if I intend to use it to disperse the same information, then I will fact check it. And if I cross reference, it's typically with another either locally sourced resource that it would have the same data gathering. So, for instance, if it's WXII I'm looking at, I can look at WFMY, or I could look at the Winston-Salem Journal, and I use the internet typically for those. And then if I'm watching CNN, then I can Google search the topic, and then based on what comes up, I would choose what I know to be the most reliable and trustworthy sources that are available.
How do you feel about social media spreading information?
It does. Period. Whether it's disinformation, misinformation, or true facts, it does. Um, I I understand the censorship factor, as in people are feeling as if they are being censored when it comes to fact checking. But I also appreciate the importance of fact checkers in each social media outlet. So, like for Facebook, Meta, whatever, they have resources that fact check of their own accord and then will report disinformation or misinformation. They have their own pool of fact checkers, and then sometimes they just let misinformation or disinformation go anyway, despite the fact that they can prove it wrong. So I know that it occurs, I know that it's out there, but I feel as if the potential for me to be sucked into perpetuating misinformation or disinformation is lower than when social media first was born.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, why do you feel that accurate information is important during an election cycle?
Mm. Uh, politics are politics are a hotbed for propaganda. And so propaganda can come from artificial intelligence, propaganda can come from misinformation being spread. And so during an election cycle, to be able to accurately source the information that you're basing your vote on, it takes a lot of research, and a lot of people are not willing to do that. So to be able to be a trustworthy source in a world of inundation of information on a consistent basis is probably the most valuable thing that any politician could have during an election cycle.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. Do you have any final comments about how people can find credible information or sources?
Probably the most reasonable and credible sources would be to multi cross reference if you're unsure. If you've gotten your feet wet in politics, especially during an election cycle, if you've gotten your feet wet, then you probably have a tributary of a river of information. And so once you start to wade in the tributary, it's typically easier to find the true factual resources that are available. Unfortunately, the same is true for disinformation. Is that if you get your feet wet into the wrong pool, then it's going to take you in a deluge. So, I personally find my beneficial, like if I'm looking for a specific if I'm looking for a specific topic, I go to a trusted resource initially to delve into more facts or more data about that topic. Um, and I think like if I really think back in history, like time wise, it probably began by speaking to trusted individuals in person, like humans, before I started playing around on the internet. So that's it.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.